What's up, everybody? Welcome to my Week 12 picks. I did pretty good in Week 11, just for kind of a quick recap. I went 9-4 last week, which I was pretty satisfied with. Still holding strong at kind of a 63.5% average. I'm trying to get it to 75 by the end of the year. I don't even know if that's mathematically possible anymore because the first half of the season was so wild. But trying to get there at least as close as I can. I've been doing pretty well the last few weeks. And I started out doing pretty well this week, too. The first 3 weeks, or the first 3 games of the week, I should say, the Thanksgiving trio, I got all 3 right. I post my picks on Twitter, and exactly what happened, at least what I thought would happen, happened. So I was pretty satisfied with that. Moving on to the Sunday games, though, we open up with Cleveland at Cincinnati. I picked Cleveland a lot early in the year, and they burned me every single time. I thought they were going to be a way better team than they actually are. And because of that, I'm not going to pick them until they actually win a game. I mean, I don't care if I don't think the Bengals are very good, which I don't. I don't think the Bengals are that good. I think they're probably the definition of an average team. But the Browns are so bad that I cannot, in good conscience, pick them to win any game against anybody for the rest of the year. I mean, even if they do end up winning 2 or maybe even 3 games, just because their defense is pretty okay, even if they start winning games late in the year to blow an opportunity at a first overall pick, I still won't pick them because I don't trust them anymore. They broke my trust so many times. I can't pick them anymore. So I do think the Bengals get a win this week and kind of inch ever closer to getting back to a 500 record, which I do think by the end of the year they're going to finish at least at 500, probably 8-8, 9-7 at best. But I do think they're going to get there, and winning against the Browns this week is going to go a long way to doing that. Next up, we got the Panthers, who are right in the thick of the NFC South hunt. They're going up to New York to take on the Jets. And I mean, the Jets are scrappy. I kind of like them this year. They have a lot more wins and a lot more close losses than I expected them to have. But that just kind of goes a long way to showing what culture and attitude and actually giving a shit actually does for a football team. I do think the Panthers are going to win this game because they out-talent the Jets in almost every conceivable way. But it's probably not going to be a blowout. I think it is going to be a close game, and I think they're going to give up a good fight, just as they have all year, really. I think the Jets are going to put up a good fight, but ultimately lose. And, I guess Pyrrhic victories are a theme for them this year. But Panthers will get a real victory instead and kind of keep pace with the Saints, or at least just behind the Saints, in the race for that division crown. Next up, we got a division game in the AFC South between the Titans going up to Indy, where they actually never won in Lucas Oil Stadium, believe it or not. I do think they're going to get their first win in Lucas Oil this week, though. The Colts are not very good at all. They've kind of gotten a few random wins here and there, but man, it's been pretty ugly overall for this year for them. The Titans are a good team, not a great team, as evidenced by the fact they got spanked by the Steelers, who I think are a great team. But I do think they are going to be in the thick of it for an AFC wildcard spot, and I think they are going to walk away with a victory in this game. Just looking at Marcus Mariota versus Jacoby Brissett, I know Mariota had a bad game last week, but it's really not even close in terms of the quality of quarterbacks going against each other here. The Titans also have a better defense. I think they have a better coach, that one by a long shot. So I do think Tennessee gets their first victory at Lucas Oil Stadium, and they move to, I guess that would put them at 7-4 on the year, which is probably the best record they've had in Week 12 in a while, really. So, good job for them. Moving on, we're staying in the South. We're going over to the NFC South, though, for another divisional game. We got Tampa Bay going to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. And, this was a game that I pointed out before the season as potentially being, maybe for the NFC in total. But the Bucs have just been terrible this year. I mean, it's been bad luck after bad luck. They've completely fallen apart from my expectations for them. And, the Falcons haven't really lived up to my expectations for them either. But they're at least still, I think they're in a 6 seed position now. So, at least they're still on track to make the playoffs. But, I mean, the Bucs, they might as well have been eliminated a month into the year. It's been brutal, absolutely brutal for them. So I do think the Falcons are going to blow them out in this game. I don't think it's going to be close, which sucks because, I was really looking forward to watching Tampa this year, and I kind of turned them off about 6 weeks ago. I couldn't take it anymore. I'm not even a Bucs fan, and I couldn't take it anymore. So it sucks for them, sucks for their fans to go into the year with such high expectations and then fall flat. But I do think the Falcons get the win here, and I think they're going to kind of continue to be that lurking presence in the NFC. You know, that team that can't really put it all together, but maybe by January they figure it out, and all of a sudden they become extremely dangerous as a wild card. We see that happen every couple of years, and I do think the Falcons can be that team this year as long as they kind of keep getting their shit together, which they haven't been able to do all year, at least consistently. But, blowing out the Bucs might be what they call a get-right game for them. So we'll see how that plays out. I do think they're going to win by at least 2 touchdowns in this game, though. So chalk me up for Atlanta here. Moving on, we got another division game. We got Miami heading up to New England. I am obviously going to take the Patriots in this game. It'd be kind of insane not to. They're one of the 5 or 6 best teams in the league. I don't think anybody really disputes that. And they always get better as the year goes on. Usually when Miami visits them late in the season, it never goes well for the Dolphins. I think that trend is going to continue. I have no faith in them to pull off the upset here. I think the Patriots win big, and they continue to cement their case as the best team in the AFC. Next game, we've got kind of an intriguing matchup between the Bears and the Eagles. It is in Philadelphia, though, so I am going to go with the Eagles because the Bears are not the same team on the road at all. If it was in Chicago, I might think twice about it because the Bears, for whatever reason, when they're in Soldier Field, they can play with anybody. It's kind of remarkable how different they are on the road versus at home. But, you could argue the Eagles are the best team in the league right now. They're playing at home. They've got the MVP, at least who I think is going to be the MVP at quarterback. They're extremely hot on both sides of the ball. Even the special teams is picking it up. So I think this is probably not going to be a close game just because of where it's being played. And I kind of wish it was being played in Chicago. I think we'd get a better game, at least for the fans to watch. But, the Eagles are going to keep rolling. They're going to keep rolling like they have all year. And I don't know if anybody's really going to be able to stop them. If they get the number 1 seed in the NFC and they don't have to travel to New Orleans or they don't have to travel to Carolina or travel to Atlanta, not that Atlanta really has a shot at taking it from them, but if they don't have to go anywhere in the playoffs, I think they have a very good shot at making the Super Bowl. And damn, does that fan base deserve it? I mean, Jesus Christ, they haven't won. With all the good teams the Eagles have had over the years, believe it or not, they have not won a single Super Bowl. I thought I had it bad as a Texans fan. We've only really existed for, 15 years now, and it feels like, painstaking that we've never even made a Super Bowl. I mean, this is a fan base who's endured decade after decade of making Super Bowls and losing them or just not making the playoffs at all. And it's kind of been building up to a fever pitch this season. You can kind of feel it over there in that fan base that they think they have a real shot. And, if the Texans can't win a Super Bowl, I hope the Eagles do because I really love Carson Wentz. I think that fan base has suffered long enough, and I think they're due. Flat out, I think they're due. And I think that starts this week with a big-ass win over the Bears and further cementing their status as the number 1 seed in the NFC. Now, moving on to the only team that's beaten the Eagles. I mean, shockingly enough, back when the Chiefs were, great, they're the only team that's taken down Philadelphia this whole year, and they've completely fallen apart halfway through the season. And they're being visited by a Buffalo Bills team that nobody can seem to figure out in terms of whether or not they're a threat or not. Personally, I think the Chiefs are going to win this game, especially because it's in Arrowhead, and I don't really think the Bills know what they want to do anymore. I don't think they know what their identity is. I don't think they, the unit cohesion that they seem to have early in the year, it seems like that's kind of evaporated over the last 3 to 4 weeks. I don't really know why. Maybe it was trading Marcel Darius. Maybe it wasn't. I mean, there's a lot of reports that he wasn't really great for that locker room anyway, so I don't really know what happened. I really don't. It's kind of weird. They're not playing the same. They're not playing with that same rabid ferocity that made them a surprise AFC contender early in the year. So I don't really get it, but no matter what, it's gone. I think KC is desperate. I think they're pulling out all the stops, and I think they're going to do whatever they can to win this game. They definitely still want it. They definitely still think they can win and at least go far in the AFC. Whereas the Bills, I get the impression that they're just kind of a listless organization right now. I don't think the quarterback wants to be there. I mean, if I was Tyrod, I definitely would not want to be there. I think the players are a little bit confused about this whole Tyrod saga and why it had to be forced on them when they were in the middle of a pretty good season, at least by expectations. I don't know. I don't really understand the whole thing. I don't think I ever will. I don't think Bills fans understand the whole thing. I mean, they were cheering for Peterman when he came in, and then all of a sudden he throws 5 interceptions, and then it's, oh, well, we never should have got rid of Tyrod. Well, no shit, you shouldn't have got rid of Tyrod. I mean, I don't know. The whole thing just bothers me. It bothers me from top to bottom. I know I'm kind of going on an incoherent rant here, but I don't know. I'm disappointed to see how this team has kind of fallen apart in the last month or so. And it's not the Chiefs haven't fallen apart. They've fallen apart just as bad, but I do think at least Kansas City is a little bit more cohesive as a team. I think they at least know what they want to be. At least I still think they have their identity intact, whereas the Bills just don't. They don't have an identity anymore. You know, they did, and then they gave it away for no reason. So that's on them. They're going to lose this week. The Chiefs are going to get a desperately needed win and try to at least thrust themselves back in the discussion for the AFC West crown, or at the very least a wild card spot. I do think they can at least make the wild card, but they got to start winning, and they got to start winning now, and that starts with beating the Bills. Now, moving on, we have yet another divisional game. We got Seattle going to San Francisco, and I realize that, you know, Seattle, kind of half their defense is gotten hurt at this point, but at the same time, they still have Russell Wilson, and I said it last week that as long as you have Russell Wilson, you've got a chance, and he almost pulled it out. I got that pick right, but in the back of my mind, I was thinking that I would not have been surprised if Seattle won that game just because of their quarterback. And damn, they got close. They got really close. So I think even though they're on the road this week, you know, they've sustained a bunch of injuries. I do think because they have Russell Wilson, they are going to get the win. And I don't know if it's going to be a big win. It'll probably be like a 7 to 9 point kind of solid win. But man, they need it. They really need it. They still got to stay alive in the NFC. Right now, I think they're actually not in the playoffs. I think Atlanta's win over them last year knocked them out of the 6th seed. So, you know, they got to start racking up these wins in the NFC. They got to start racking up division wins and get as many tiebreakers as they can, because it's probably going to come down to tiebreakers if they're going to make the playoffs or not. So every win matters a lot. And because they have Russell Wilson, I do think they're going to get this win. Next up, we got yet another, and I'll say it again, yet another divisional game, Denver going to Oakland. Towards the end of the year, they always kind of like to pack in these divisional games real tight together because they want to make a more compelling divisional race. And that's exactly what they're doing here. I think they probably expected both the Broncos and the Raiders to be better teams than they are. Hell, I expected both the Raiders and the Broncos to be better teams than they are. But, you know, this game still matters. Technically, they're both still in the wild card hunt. Well, actually, Denver's probably not. Denver's kind of in a tailspin. But the Raiders are definitely in the wild card hunt. They really need this win. I do think they are going to get the win because Denver, they just look bad on both sides of the ball. I mean, offense, defense, special teams, they just, for the last, I think it was 6 or 7 weeks now, they just haven't been able to do anything. No matter what quarterback is under center, they can't score. Defenses are getting gassed, and even though they have all that talent in the secondary and all that talent in the pass rush, when you're tired, you're just not as good, and their offense can't stay on the field, so the defense is getting gassed, so they're giving up way more points than they're used to giving up, and it kind of leads to a vicious cycle where the offense isn't good enough to get out of that hole. So it's not a winning recipe. I think Oakland has a bunch of issues themselves. For starters, they can't stop anybody. But I at least they have a quarterback, and at least they have some receivers they trust and they like. It's probably not going to be a very pretty game. It'll probably be pretty damn ugly, to be honest. But because of the difference in quarterback, because it's in Oakland, I will give them the edge. I do think they get the win and kind of stay alive in this race for the AFC West, if not at least a wild card position. Now, moving on, we got the game of the week, which is New Orleans going out to LA to take on the Rams. And if you predicted in Week 12 that the game of the week would be the Saints and the Rams, raise your hand and then immediately put it back down because you're a fucking liar. Okay, you're a straight up liar. Nobody predicted this. But, you know, I do think it's good for the game to kind of have new blood be considered among the elite. I mean, it's been a while since the Saints have been considered elite NFC contenders, and it's been even longer since the Rams have been considered contenders. I mean, it's probably 15, 16 years since people have really taken them seriously. You know, but it is nice to see some kind of new blood at the top. I think the league really needed that. It's really kind of refreshing. Now, as for the game itself, I do think the Rams are going to win, primarily because both Marshawn Lattimore and Ken Crawley are out for the Saints, which is a massive almost unquantifiable blow to that defense. It completely changes their entire game plan on defense. They can't just put Marshawn Lattimore on Sammy Watkins and tell him to erase him from the field and then have Crawley and Marcus Williams double Woods on the other side. That game plan is gone now. It's gone. They can't use it. It's what they've been doing all year for their defense to kind of make a resurgence, which I broke down on this channel probably about a month ago. And I think that's going to hurt them a lot, even though I like the Saints offense and I like some of the pieces they have on defense. Without those two corners, I don't think they really have a shot to win this game. I think the Rams are a much better team than the score indicated last week in Minnesota, and I think they're going to bounce back, and I think they're going to win a very big, much-needed game in the NFC. It's probably going to go a long way in terms of deciding who seeds where in the playoffs, and it kind of leaves the door open for LA to somehow, against all the odds, get a potential playoff bye in January, which again would have been one of the most improbable outcomes that anybody could have predicted this year. But damn, does it feel good to see it, because I just love seeing teams kind of pull themselves out of the gutter and become contenders, especially over in 1 year with a rookie head coach. It's a very compelling story to me. I love watching it unfold, and I think it's going to continue unfold this weekend with a big win over the Saints. Now, next up, we got Arizona hosting the Jaguars, two teams that are moving in completely opposite directions. And it kind of sucks for Arizona, too, because the Jaguars match up very well with them. They have an elite defense feasting on a backup quarterback in addition to a big, bruising running back that can punish what I at least personally feel is kind of a light box in Arizona. They don't really have that big grinder in the middle that can match up with Leonard Fournette and stop him cold at the line of scrimmage. So it's a bad personnel matchup for them. It's bad timing for Arizona because they don't have Carson Palmer. He's been gone for 5 or 6 weeks now. Overall, I don't really see any way for the Cardinals to win this game schematically, personnel wise, coaching wise. It doesn't really add up to me. So I think the Jaguars get the win here, and they kind of continue to solidify their death grip over the AFC South. It might come down to a late season contest with the Titans. But I think at this point, just kind of looking at the Jaguars' schedule, looking at their personnel, looking at their culture, looking at how they prepare every single week and how their game plans have been working out beautifully for them, for the most part, I should say. I think they're probably going to win the South this year. I don't really think there's any way that either Houston or Tennessee can unseat them. I think people in Jacksonville should start looking at booking playoff tickets in January, because you're going, people. You're going. Just so get ready for it, prepare for it, and have one hell of a tailgate, because God knows you guys have earned it. And it kind of ties back into the Rams thing. I love watching franchises, even though they're kind of a rival of my team. I love watching franchises dig themselves out of the gutter, and that's what the Jags did this year, and I couldn't be prouder of them, again, even though they're a rival, just because I love seeing these kind of stories in the league. We need it. We need kind of a cycling of new blood into the elite tier of teams. I'm not saying the Jags are elite, but I do think over time, just looking at what they're building there, I think they can get to that kind of perennial contender status. Blake Bortles or no Blake Bortles. I think they have that good of a defense. I think they have that good of a run game. And I'm kind of excited to see what they do, especially in January, because if you've got a defense and a run game, you can win in the playoffs. So it's not like they're a one-and-done type thing. They might be able to make a push here. So, again, as for this week, they're going to win in Arizona, but keep an eye on them in January. I know I'm kind of rambling about them, but I'm excited to see what they do. I really am. And speaking of excited and watching an AFC team, I love watching the Steelers play ball, man. I mean, when you get Bell and Brown and Ben working on all cylinders, it's tough to stop. It's really tough to stop. I love watching it, man. It's almost like a feeling of futility when you see them operating on all cylinders, man. It's something else. It's something else. And I think they're going up against a Green Bay team that, without Aaron Rodgers, they probably don't have a realistic shot of winning this game. I don't think they're going to be able to score enough points to keep up. I don't think their defense is good enough to limit the Killer Bees at all. At all. Oh, and I forgot to mention Juju Smith-Schuster, too. He's been a revelation as a rookie, at least by rookie standards. So I think the Steelers are going to score an assload of points in this game. I think their defense, which is very underrated, is going to shut down anything that the Packers want to throw at them on offense. And I think it's going to be a big win. I think it's probably going to be a 15 to 20 plus point kind of win here. And I should mention it's also in Pittsburgh too. So yeah, this one's not going to be close. It kind of sucks for NBC because in the beginning of the year, this looked like a great matchup between Roethlisberger and Rodgers, and everybody was expecting it to be a battle between two potential Super Bowl contenders. And to be fair, it was until Rodgers got hurt. But he's no longer there. It's probably going to be a blowout, and don't plan on staying up too late to watch this game. It's not going to be close. And that brings us to the final game of the week. My Texans traveling to Baltimore to get their asses kicked by Brandon Williams, which is probably what's going to happen. You look at the Baltimore defense with and without Brandon Williams, and it is completely different. Completely different. I mean, people really struggle to score on them when Brandon Williams is in the lineup. He missed a few weeks early in the year, which kind of slanted their defensive numbers. But he's back now. He's been back for a while, and they've been kicking ass and taking names on defense. It's no matter who else is hurt. I know Jimmy Smith is questionable with an Achilles. You got Suggs questionable with an ankle. It literally doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter at all. As long as Williams is in there in the middle, kind of clogging run lanes and pushing the pocket against the pass, I mean, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. That Baltimore defense is probably going to allow, I would probably give the Texans 15 points at the most. And that's being generous because I love them, because they're my team. But I would not be shocked if it's less than 10 points. I really would not be shocked. Will Fuller is gone. Tom Savage is hot garbage. Deontay Foreman just tore his Achilles last week. The offensive line is not very good at all. It's a recipe for the Texans not being able to do anything on offense. And again, it's another primetime game where it looked good about 2 months ago, or whenever Deshaun Watson was lighting it up and the Ravens defense was killing people, and everybody's like, oh man, it's going to be a great matchup between a great offense and a great defense. Yeah, not so much. It's not going to be a close game. If I was going to put a score on it, I would probably say Ravens 27, Texans 9. And I say that as a Texans fan. So even with my blind optimism, I think they're going to get blown out. And that sucks to say, but I almost don't even want to watch this game. I will because I'm a masochist, but I really almost don't even want to watch it. So anyway, those are my picks for the week. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope I do a little bit better than 9-4 so I can continue to bump that average up. But, we're doing well. I think we're kind of locked in for the end of the season. I think we kind of know who's good and who's bad at this point. There's not a whole lot of mystery left. It's really all about, looking at the marquee matchups from week to week and deciding, who's going to win, who's going to get elevated in playoff seeding. That's really what we're looking at right now is who's getting the seeds for January and who's traveling to who in that first wild card round and eventually the divisional round and the championship round. Seeding is extremely important. I personally think that seeding is usually what decides who goes to the Super Bowl. I really do, because home field advantage is so crucial in the playoffs. So, as these kind of contenders, the wheat from the chaff separate from each other and we see who's getting seeded where, it becomes a little bit more clear who has the easiest path to the Super Bowl. So I'm excited to see how this plays out. We've still got, 5 or 6 more weeks left in the season for that to kind of all be decided. There's a lot of teams and a lot of seeds that are still way up in the air. I think the Eagles are probably the only ones that you can really lock in for either conference. But man, I'm excited to see how it plays out. I think it's going to be a really fun last month and a half of the season. And I'm stoked. I'm really stoked. So, I'll be back next week with another full episode of The Film Room. Not sure who it's going to be on yet or what team it's going to be on yet. I've got a few ideas, a lot of requests for Jamal Adams, some requests for Tyrod Taylor, and a billion requests for Case Keenum, how he's kind of come out of nowhere to be a legitimate starting quarterback this year. So, I've got options. I'll take a look at the games this Sunday and decide, what subject interests me and what I can bang out an episode for in 4 days. So stay tuned for that. I'll be back next week. And until then, later.